This mysterious image that was just captured during the closest approach of 3I Atlas to Earth has been shared to online groups investigating the interstellar visitor. Released by independent astronomer Matthew Crawford, the photograph arrived at a moment when global curiosity about this interstellar visitor was already at its peak. Rather than settling questions, the image intensified them, raising profound issues about transparency, access to data, and the growing divide between institutional space agencies and independent observers. Crawford's images immediately stood out. Using equipment that cost a fraction of what national space agencies deploy, he managed to produce visuals that appeared sharper, more structured, and more revealing than those released through official channels. The object in his photographs shows a luminous, elongated form surrounded by a faint envelope of light, with a geometry that many observers describe as unusually precise. This clarity was especially striking when compared to the imagery released by NASA, an agency with access to some of the most advanced imaging technology ever built. Within astronomy circles, Crawford was already known for his methodical approach. He had been tracking Atlas since its earliest detection, carefully refining his techniques as the object moved closer to Earth. Rather than relying on short exposures, he employed extended exposure imaging, advanced stacking, and a calibration process he had developed over years of experimentation. This allowed him to pull subtle details from the background noise, revealing structure where others saw only blur. The resulting images show Atlas as something far more complex than a simple interstellar rock. A central bright region appears to anchor the object, while faint, symmetrical streams of light extend outward. To many observers, this configuration does not resemble a typical comet tail or the irregular shape of an asteroid. It suggests an organized form, one that maintains coherence even as it travels through interstellar space. The contrast with NASA's official presentation could not have been more dramatic. Toward the end of October, the agency held a highly promoted livestream, promising what was described as one of the clearest views yet of Atlas. The data, according to NASA, came from the high-resolution imaging science experiment camera aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Anticipation was intense. After weeks of speculation, the public expected a definitive image that would finally clarify the nature of the object. What appeared on screen, however, left many stunned. The image was soft and washed out, offering little more than a vague glow against the darkness of space. There was no visible structure, no discernible geometry, and no detail that justified the build-up. Almost immediately, viewers began comparing NASA's release to Crawford's independently captured images. The difference was stark. Where Crawford's work showed depth and form, the official image seemed flat and incomplete. Disappointment quickly turned into suspicion. Many questioned how a multi-billion-dollar space agency could release imagery that appeared inferior to that produced by an individual observer on Earth. Social media filled with side-by-side comparisons, and the narrative that something was being withheld began to take shape. For many, the issue was not merely image quality, but credibility. NASA explained the delay in releasing the image by citing a government shutdown that had paused operations. Yet, this explanation did little to calm critics. The data had been collected weeks earlier, and many found it difficult to believe that sharing a single image required the full machinery of an active agency. The prolonged silence, followed by a release that seemed underwhelming, only fueled speculation that internal deliberations had taken place about what should be shown. The livestream itself deepened the unease. NASA had hinted at important new insights, leading many to expect a detailed breakdown of Atlas's features. Instead, the broadcast offered a brief overview of its trajectory and a short display of the blurred image, with minimal discussion of anomalies or uncertainties. As the stream ended, viewers expressed a shared sense that the moment had been carefully managed rather than openly explored. Crawford's images, by contrast, appeared to invite scrutiny rather than avoid it. He openly shared his processing methods, raw frames, and calibration steps. This transparency earned him respect among both amateur and professional astronomers. His willingness to show how the image was produced allowed others to verify that the features were not artifacts of manipulation, but consistent across multiple exposures and nights. The object itself remains deeply puzzling. From its first detection, Atlas has defied easy classification. Its reflectivity varies in ways not typical of known comets, and its elongated shape challenges assumptions about how natural interstellar objects form. Its motion, while consistent with gravitational dynamics, appears unusually stable given its apparent structure. Crawford's images have only intensified these questions. Among those who study unexplained phenomena, the photographs have reignited discussion about whether Atlas could possess artificial characteristics. The symmetry observed in the luminous structure, the defined central region, and the consistent geometry across multiple images have all been cited as reasons for curiosity. While Crawford himself has remained cautious, emphasizing observation over interpretation, others have been less restrained in their conclusions. The response to this episode reflects a broader shift in how the public engages with science. For decades, institutions like NASA were seen as the sole authoritative source for space imagery. Today, advances in technology have placed powerful tools in the hands of individuals. High-quality telescopes, sensitive cameras, and sophisticated software are no longer exclusive to governments. As a result, independent observers can now challenge official narratives in ways that were previously impossible. This democratization of observation has created tension. On one hand, it allows for greater transparency and collective verification. On the other, it exposes discrepancies that institutions may not be prepared to address publicly. The Atlas images have become a symbol of this tension, representing a moment when grassroots science appeared to outpace institutional disclosure. Critics of NASA have pointed to historical patterns, noting instances where live feeds were interrupted or data releases delayed during encounters with unusual objects. Whether these events reflect caution, bureaucratic inertia, or something more deliberate is a matter of debate. In the case of Atlas, the gap between Crawford's clarity and NASA's ambiguity has become a focal point for those who argue that full transparency is not always practiced. Crawford's role in this unfolding story is particularly significant. Rather than positioning himself as an adversary to official science, he has framed his work as complementary. He continues to observe, refine, and share, contributing data that others can analyze. His calm demeanor and refusal to sensationalize have strengthened his credibility, even as others project broader implications onto his findings. As discussions continue, many observers have begun revisiting earlier interstellar anomalies. In previous cases, official imagery was similarly vague, while independent reconstructions appeared more detailed. When viewed alongside Crawford's Atlas images, these patterns suggest a recurring reluctance to present high-definition visuals of objects that do not fit established models. Public expectation has evolved. People no longer accept indistinct images accompanied by reassurances. They expect clear visuals, timely releases, and open discussion of uncertainties. Crawford's work demonstrates that such clarity is achievable even without institutional backing. His images have not only advanced understanding of Atlas, but also reshaped the conversation about who gets to define what is seen and understood. As Atlas continues its journey away from Earth, the image captured at closest approach will remain a reference point. It represents a moment when an individual observer altered the global dialogue, challenging assumptions about authority and access in space research. Whether Atlas proves to be a natural curiosity or something more profound, the episode has already left a lasting mark. As of right now, the mystery of Atlas is not confined to the object itself. It extends to how information is shared, who controls the narrative, and how emerging voices are changing the landscape of scientific discovery. In September 2024, a Freedom of Information Act request was filed with NASA that set off a chain of revelations, denials, appeals, and ultimately, an admission that has raised questions about the agency's transparency. The request, filed by the Black Vault, asked for records of congressional briefings on the James Webb Space Telescope between 2021 and 2024. It specifically sought classified and unclassified materials relating to congressional updates about the James Webb Telescope discoveries. What at first seemed like a simple inquiry quickly escalated into a much larger controversy about secrecy, internal communications, and whether NASA has been caught misleading the public. The reason the request was filed in the first place is important to understand. By mid-September of 2024, speculation had already begun circulating online, spurred by viral videos and social media posts. These posts claimed that the James Webb Space Telescope had detected something extraordinary, a mysterious object moving toward Earth. Rumors suggested that NASA had already briefed members of Congress about the discovery in closed sessions, and that the information was being withheld from the public. The speculation gained further traction when journalist Matt Laszlo, as part of his Ask a Poll project, asked Representative Andre Carson directly whether he had attended classified James Webb Telescope briefings. Carson had previously chaired a congressional hearing on unidentified aerial phenomena, making him a key figure in the discussion. His refusal to respond was taken by many as confirmation that something was indeed being hidden. NASA's first response to the Freedom of Information Act request was categorical. In an October 9, 2024 letter, the agency claimed that no records existed. The searches, they said, had been conducted within the offices of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs and the Science Mission Directorate, and no documents matching the request were found. On the surface, this seemed to put the matter to rest. If no records existed, then there was nothing more to discuss. Yet those following the issue closely were not convinced, pointing out that NASA had publicly testified about the telescope's discoveries in November of 2022. Such testimony would almost certainly have required preparatory materials and internal briefings. An appeal was quickly filed, challenging the adequacy of NASA's search. The appeal argued that the denial overlooked obvious records, such as preparatory documents for NASA's November 16, 2022 hearing before the House Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics. That session, titled Unfolding the Universe: Initial Science Results from the James Webb Telescope, featured testimony from leading figures in the field, including Dr. Mark Clampin, Dr. Stephen Kinkelstein, and Dr. Natalie Batalha. It was implausible, critics argued, that such a significant event would have occurred without any supporting internal documentation. By December of 2024, the Office of the General Counsel sided with the appeal. They admitted that responsive records did in fact exist, and that NASA's initial claim had been inaccurate. The case was remanded for further processing. This reversal, in itself, was telling. An agency that had initially insisted no documents existed now conceded that they did, raising questions about whether the original denial had been an honest mistake or a deliberate attempt to shield information from public scrutiny. The next development came on August 29, 2025, when NASA released 24 pages of documents under the new case number 2500860 FHQ. These documents were briefing slides prepared for the November 15, 2022 prep session ahead of the public hearing. The slides revealed the structure of NASA's internal preparations, with headings such as themes, messages, questions to think about, and further questions to think about. Yet nearly all of the actual content was withheld under the Freedom of Information Act Exemption B5, which protects deliberative process communications. The use of Exemption B5 has been a source of contention in transparency debates for years. The exemption does not signify that the information is classified. Rather, it protects pre-decisional, deliberative discussions within agencies. NASA argued that releasing the withheld material would undermine their ability to engage in candid internal conversations. They stated that disclosure would make employees cautious about what they say in preparatory discussions, potentially harming the agency's effectiveness. However, what makes this case stand out is the context. The withheld slides were not for a classified session, but for a public hearing. NASA officials had already openly testified about the James Webb Telescope's results, and video of the hearing remains available to the public. Why, then, should preparatory notes and suggested talking points tied to a public event be treated as sensitive? Under the Freedom of Information Act request law, Exemption B5 allows, but does not require withholding. Agencies can release deliberative material if they determine that disclosure would not cause harm. In this case, NASA chose near-total redactions, even though the subject matter had already been aired publicly. This inconsistency is what has fueled accusations that NASA was caught in a lie. Their initial no records response was overturned by their own legal office, showing that documents did exist all along. When the documents were finally released, their content was so heavily redacted that little could be learned. In essence, the public was shown an empty framework of what NASA had prepared, but was denied access to the substance. For those who believe NASA is hiding groundbreaking discoveries, the sequence of denial, reversal, and redaction looks suspicious. The controversy also highlights the tension between public right to know and government control of information. The James Webb Space Telescope is not a classified military asset, but a publicly funded scientific project. Its discoveries belong to humanity, not to a select few. For NASA to withhold information related to a public hearing undermines trust and invites speculation that something larger is at play. Some argue that if the James Webb Telescope had detected something extraordinary, such as evidence of life, a mysterious structure, or an approaching object, the agency might attempt to control the narrative before releasing details. The deliberate process exemption provides a convenient mechanism for doing so. Speculation has only deepened in the wake of these developments. The original rumors in 2024 suggested that the James Webb Telescope had detected a mysterious object moving toward Earth. The secrecy surrounding the congressional briefings, combined with NASA's refusal to release internal notes, has kept those rumors alive. Representative Carson's silence when asked about classified James Webb Telescope briefings has also fueled the sense that something significant is being withheld. While no direct evidence has been released to confirm the existence of such an object, the sequence of NASA's responses has given critics plenty of reason to doubt the agency's transparency. At the heart of the controversy lies a simple question. If the documents related only to a public hearing, why did NASA go to such lengths to withhold them? Their justification, that releasing the material would chill internal discussions, rings hollow when compared to the broader public interest. The Freedom of Information Act request was designed to give citizens insight into government operations, especially when public resources and public trust are at stake. By withholding nearly everything, NASA has effectively provided the opposite of transparency. The implications of this case go far beyond a single telescope or hearing. If NASA is willing to deny records that clearly exist and later redact nearly all useful information under a discretionary exemption, it raises concerns about how the agency handles information more broadly. For the public, the James Webb Space Telescope represents one of the most exciting scientific tools of the modern age. Its ability to peer deeper into the cosmos than ever before has already reshaped our understanding of galaxies, exoplanets, and the earliest moments of the universe. The suggestion that such a telescope may have discovered something extraordinary, only for the information to be buried in layers of bureaucratic denial and redaction, cuts to the core of public trust. The Apollo 17 Triangle. The Apollo missions remain some of the most scrutinized events in human history, with millions of images and hours of footage available to the public. Yet, despite this extensive record, there are still certain photographs that stand out as particularly mysterious. One such image comes from Apollo 17, the final mission to the Moon, which took place in December of 1972. At first glance, the photograph shows the desolate yet beautiful lunar landscape with its rolling hills, soft grey dust, and black sky. However, a closer inspection of the high-definition version of this image reveals something far more intriguing. A glowing triangular formation hovering in the right-hand corner of the frame. Strangely, the high-definition version of this image has proven difficult to locate. NASA's official archives contain a compressed, lower-resolution version where the triangle cannot be clearly seen. This has sparked widespread speculation as to why the higher-quality version is not more readily available. Critics argue that this omission may not be accidental, but rather a deliberate attempt to obscure the details of whatever object appears in the frame. For those who have analyzed the original high-definition copy, the triangular object is striking. It emits a faint glow, with 3 distinct points of light forming a near-perfect triangle, a shape long associated with some of the most mysterious and unexplained craft in modern UFO reports. The Black Triangle UFO has become one of the most iconic shapes in the study of unidentified aerial phenomena. Silent, enormous, and often described as moving with eerie precision, these craft are regularly spotted above military installations, nuclear sites, and areas of heightened strategic interest. Witnesses consistently report that the craft appears to hover effortlessly before vanishing at incredible speeds. What makes this Apollo 17 image so fascinating is the implication that these objects are not confined to Earth's skies, but have been observed near the Moon as well. If the glowing triangle captured in this photograph is indeed one of these mysterious craft, it raises profound questions. Why would such an object be present during one of humanity's most historic journeys? Was it simply observing the mission? Or could it have played a more direct role in monitoring human activity beyond Earth? The fact that it appears in proximity to astronauts exploring the lunar surface suggests that these craft may have a particular interest in our ventures into space. Skeptics often argue that anomalies in space photographs can be explained as lens flares, reflections, or processing errors. Yet the triangular object in this image does not fit neatly into those categories. Its geometric shape is too precise, and the distribution of its glowing points suggests deliberate design rather than random artifacting. Natural phenomena rarely produce such symmetry, especially in the harsh lighting conditions of the lunar surface. For many researchers, this level of structure implies intent, suggesting the presence of technology far beyond our own capabilities. Equally puzzling is the silence surrounding the object. Official mission transcripts and astronaut accounts make no mention of a glowing triangular formation in the sky above the lunar hills. This could mean that it was not visible to the naked eye, but was captured by the camera's sensors, or that any references to it were omitted from public records. Either possibility only deepens the mystery. The idea that triangular craft might operate near the moon is not without precedent. Numerous accounts over the years have suggested that large, silent vehicles patrol both low Earth orbit and cislunar space. Some have speculated that these craft could belong to advanced extraterrestrial civilizations monitoring our progress, while others argue they could be part of secretive human programs hidden from the public eye. Whichever theory one subscribes to, the Apollo 17 photograph provides a rare piece of visual evidence to fuel the debate. The implications of such an object being real are staggering. If these craft are extraterrestrial in origin, their presence during Apollo 17 would suggest a long-standing awareness of, and perhaps interest in, human spaceflight. If they are human-made, it would indicate that technology far beyond conventional propulsion systems has been secretly developed and deployed, raising questions about who controls it and why it has remained hidden. What makes this case particularly compelling is the combination of visual evidence, historical context, and the mysterious handling of the photograph itself. The decision to release only a lower resolution version to the public, while the high-definition image reveals something extraordinary, suggests that there is more to the story than officials are willing to admit. The glowing triangle is not just another light anomaly, it fits too closely with decades of eyewitness testimony describing black triangle UFOs. For those studying the phenomenon, this Apollo 17 photograph stands as a reminder that mysteries persist even within humanity's proudest achievements. While astronauts planted flags and collected lunar rocks, something else may have been watching from the shadows of space. Whether it was a silent guardian, a curious observer, or something altogether unknown, its presence near the moon challenges our understanding of what took place during those historic missions.